We'd like to welcome everybody to the September 22nd meeting of the New Bern Board of Aldermen. And tonight the prayer will be given by Alderman Barbara Best.
Can we all please take a moment for prayer? Heavenly Father, I come before you this afternoon, this evening, asking for mercy. I just thank you, Lord, for life itself. And I thank you for allowing us this day that we can all come together as one and make the decisions for this city and conduct the business for this city. And let us give us all an open mind, an open heart, and let us all take reason when we make the decisions that we will be affecting all the people of this city. Lord, I just ask you for guidance, and I thank you for allowing me to have this opportunity to praise you, my Heavenly Father. Amen.
Amen. Would you join me in the pledge of allegiance to the flag of our country? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Madam Clerk, would you call the roll?
Alderman Bingle. Here. Alderwoman Harris.
Present.
Alderman Astor.
Here.
Mayor Outlaw.
Yes, here.
Alderman Kinsey. Alderman Best.
Present.
Alderman Odom.
Here.
Okay, this time, is everybody good with the agendas? No changes? Let's go to the consent agenda.
Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to approve the consent agenda as is.
Second.
Motion and second. Is there discussion? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion, say aye. Aye. All opposed, same. Motion carries. Mr. Stevens, let's go to item number 5.
Thank you, Mayor. Item number 5 is a public hearing and consideration of the board to adopt an ordinance to annex 215 Bernhurst Road. Mary Kerr Rowlett petitioned the city to annex her property located at 215 Bernhurst Road. This is a 2.21 acre lot numbered that's located in number 2 Township. After conducting the public hearing, the board is asked to consider adoption of an ordinance to annex the property. There's a memo that's included in your packet from Mr. Ruggieri, our Director of Development Services, and we'll answer any kind of questions you may have.
Does the board have questions?
Yeah. You want to have a public hearing? Public hearing.
I just didn't want to make sure
Yeah,
there's any discussion from staff.
No more discussion from us. I mean, it's a pretty straightforward annexation at this point. It's a 2.21 acre piece of property that's over on the Bridgeton side of the Neuse River. A lot of those properties are being annexed upon the need for sanitary sewer services. Whenever they lose those sanitary sewer services or the ability to do their own septic systems, they're requesting the sewer. So this particular property is requesting an annex into the city, and it's located on Bernhurst Road, right close to where Riverside Drive. A lot of the properties that are on Riverside Drive are already within the city. So,
Okay, at this time, if there's no additional staff information, questions of the board, we're going to open a public hearing. Anybody from the public that would like to come up and make any comments, ask any questions about this item, you're free to do it at this time.
Make a motion to close public hearing.
Second.
Motion and second to close the public hearing. All in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. All opposed, same.
Aye.
Mayor, I'd like to make a motion that we adopt an ordinance to annex 215 Bernhurst Road.
Second.
Motion and second. Is there discussion? Seeing none, let's have a roll call starting with Alderman Bingle.
Alderman Bingle.
Yes?
Alderwoman Harris.
Yes.
Alderman Astor.
Yes.
Mayor Outlaw.
Yes.
Alderman Best.
Yes.
Alderman Odom.
Yes.
Okay, the motion carries. Item number 6.
Thank you, Mayor. Item number 6 is a resolution approving the 2020-2021 CDBG Annual Action Plan. CDBG Annual Action Plan serves as the city's application for funding under the Entitlement Cities program. The plan provides a summary of the actions, activities, and specific federal and non-federal resources that will be used to address the priority needs, specific goals identified in the strategic plan section of the consolidated plan for the year 2020. This FY 2021 CDBG draft annual action plan has been on display for public inspection since the 28th of August. Public hearing was held at your last board meeting, which is September the 8th, and so tonight it's here for you for approval, assuming that the board wishes to do so. We'll be happy to answer any questions. I know Amanda's here. She's here to discuss any further questions or answers that you may be seeking.
Mayor, I'd like to make a motion we adopt a resolution approving the 2021 CDBG Annual Action Plan.
Second?
Motion and second. Is there discussion? Seeing none, let's have a roll call, starting with Alderman Odom.
Alderman Odom.
Yes.
Alderman Best.
Yes.
Mayor Outlaw.
Yes.
Alderman Astor.
Yes.
Alderwoman Harris.
Yes.
Alderman Bingle.
Yes.
Motion carries. Item number 7.
Thank you, Mayor. Item number 7 is a resolution to amend the CDBG Citizen Participation Plan. In February of 2014, the board adopted a citizen participation plan with respect to the CDBG entitlement program. In response to the COVID-19 pandemic, the Department of Housing and Urban Development has issued regulatory waivers permitting the use of emergency procedures to reduce the public comment period for the 5-year consolidated plan annual action plan from 30 days to 5 days. The citizen participation plan has been amended to reflect this modification. And again, Amanda's here to answer any kind of questions the board may have.
Okay. Does the board have questions?
Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to adopt a resolution to amend the CDBG Citizen Participation Plan.
Second.
Motion and second. Is there discussion? Seeing none, let's have a roll call, starting with Alderman Bingle.
Alderman Bingle.
Yes.
Alderwoman Harris.
Yes.
Alderman Astor.
Yes.
Mayor Outlaw.
Yes.
Alderman Best.
Yes.
Alderman Odom.
Yes.
Motion carries. Item number 8.
Thank you, Mayor. Item number 8 is a resolution approving a utility relocation agreement with NCDOT for the US 70 Havelock bypass. NCDOT has requested the city to relocate overhead and underground electric utilities for the purpose of constructing the Havelock bypass. The cost of such relocation is estimated to be $181,400. The agreement establishes the estimate and the terms for reimbursement from NCDOT. The board approved the utility preliminary engineering agreement for this project at its last meeting, and there's a memo that's been included from Mr. Bouchard, our Director of Public Utilities, for your review and consideration. Happy to answer any questions.
I've read over all this, and it seems very enumerated, so to speak, but I didn't really see, as I mentioned to you, Mr. Stevens, any kind of I don't know if it's because it's a reimbursement, but typically on a lot of things we get from you, you'll have contingency amounts in there. There's none that I could run up on. So I assume, again, and I'm just pointing this out because there's going to be a lot of work between the James City and Havelock, and I just want to make sure, as I said last meeting, that somebody else is paying for this besides us. And so I will ask a hypothetical. Let's say there's a $50,000 cost overrun, and I'm not sure if that's a legal question or a Charlie Bouchard question, but again, I'm just assuming that we're going to get reimbursement.
We'll let Charlie take a stab at that.
But now along the way, if there are improvements that are to the benefit of the city of New Bern while you're doing this, obviously does DOT pay for that, or?
They will not directly pay for any improvements. When we finish our design, as we go through our design process, we'll design something that is strategically in our best interest, as well as satisfy the DOT requirements to get fully reimbursed. It is my intent to stay on top of this and get every dime that is due back to the community. There is methodologies within this term of agreement that if there are cost overruns, that we have ways to go back and do change orders and resubmit for those cost overruns. But I'll be watching those as we go through this, and if we approach any of that, I'll certainly be putting the brakes on and raising those concerns with the NCDOT.
And while you're doing it, there's no need for any type of engineering for any backfeed or any reciprocal redundancy and things like that while you're doing it.
We intend to keep all of our customers in service while we do this. So what will happen is what we call make ready. We'll build everything where it needs to be moved to and get that ready to go in service so that if there is a need for an outage, it will be a short outage where we transfer our load from the old system to the new location, and our customers hardly even notice it. If I can do it without an outage, I'm certainly going to do it. If I need outages, they'll be strategically coordinated to not affect our customers.
Well, I'm not asking for the next 50 years from a resiliency, redundancy standpoint, or are there any additional improvements that the city of New Bern would look at for the grid all the way down to Church Road down there? While you're doing that?
We're not, no, sir.
Okay.
We're not going to get wholesale resiliency improvements or design improvements from this.
Okay, thank you, sir.
I just have a quick question.
Yes, ma'am.
I know this is a reimbursement, so that means we're going to have to lay out all the money to get the work done. And then I guess we submit the receipts and get our money back. Are we in okay shape to do that? I know that with FEMA and everything, it made our financials look a little weak because we were paying out all the money. Of course, we had the money. It'll come back to us, but I know the electric is in an enterprise fund, so it's a little bit different than a general fund, but I just want to make sure we're in good shape to lay out almost $200,000.
Yes, ma'am. Unfortunately, we just received, and Mary can confirm this, we just received a very nice reimbursement on the electric side that was pretty much, that almost makes us whole on almost all the electric stuff with regards to our financial expenses for Hurricane Florence. I will also inform you that Charlie is very much on top of this to the point to where Charlie actually stopped all of our work that we were performing because we had yet to receive reimbursements from DOT for a lot of the work that we had already performed on multiple projects. And now that we're hearing that a lot of these projects are getting put on hold, obviously there's one major project, which is the James City bypass and Havelock bypass that are continuing on. But Charlie put the brakes on everything until we started seeing some money flowing back because we can't be the bank for DOT. So obviously we did that, and we have started receiving some of those reimbursements to the point to where I think we're about 300 of the 400,000 that were due have been reimbursed at this point.
Yes, sir. In May, they owed us about $440,000 as of yesterday. They've paid about $380,000 back. I'm watching that like a hawk. The intent is we created an electric project fund at the last meeting to kind of manage these monies. I plan to stay on top of our expenses and our reimbursables and get them in sync. So as our engineering firm works on this, I'm not delaying. I plan to invoice monthly to the state and get reimbursed monthly from them as well.
Great, thank you.
Does someone make a motion on this?
You ready? Let's have a roll call starting with Alderman Odom.
Somebody make a motion.
Beg pardon?
Need a motion.
Yeah.
I'll make a motion that we adopt a resolution approving a utility relocation agreement with NCDOT for the US 70 Havelock bypass.
I second it.
Motion and second. Is there discussion? Seeing none, let's have a roll call starting with Alderman Odom.
Alderman Odom.
Yes.
Alderman Best.
Yes.
Mayor Outlaw.
Yes.
Alderman Astor.
Yes.
Alderwoman Harris.
yes,
Alderman Bingle.
Yes.
Motion carries. Item number 9.
Thank you, Mayor. Item number 9 is a resolution approving the installation of additional streetlights along Sandy Point Road and Riverside Drive. Mr. Timothy Query 313 Beach Street requested additional street lighting in the area of Sandy Point Road, Riverside Drive, and the Bridgeton area. The Department of Public Utilities evaluated the area and determined the current lighting does not meet the city lighting standard for streets. Although a good portion of this area has been annexed into the city does not provide the area with electric service, nor is it feasible to extend service to that area. So we've got to look at Duke Power to provide the energy for us to install the street lighting there. The energy necessary and the installation will be about 18 street lights that need to be installed. The installation cost is absorbed by Duke, but their estimated monthly utility charge of $131.94 to $214.92 will be paid for by the city. Generally comes out of the utilities department through their line item that they have for all the other street lighting that we do. So the actual charge will depend on the type of lights fixture that we use, and there's a memo that's included from Mr. Bouchard that's been attached.
All of this area inside the city?
Not all of it, but a very significant portion of it. Very much in the same area and vicinity that we're talking about with the annexation that you just looked at. So we're off of that River Drive. And
So we'll be placing lights in the areas that's outside the city?
Potentially.
We'll be placing lights on an NCDOT right-of-way that serves some city lots and some lots that won't be, or at least a street that serves some city lots and some that aren't in the city.
So is this a fairly new, looks like a new development?
No, this is all old development. This is in the area where the sewer annexation was necessary to provide sewer for a lot of these services. The city sent it over that way, and we annexed all those who needed sanitary sewer at that time. A lot of septic issues, and I know the food line had a lot to do with that original.
That's the reason it went under the water. Yeah, it was to service the Food Line Shopping Center was being built over there. So a developer partnered with the city of New Bern to extend the sewer to that. Therefore, there was sewer on that side, which prompted people, and you had to annex in order to get on the sewer system. So they are now annexed in our city.
So that means that we're going to have to supply lighting for the whole area that needs it eventually?
Well, yeah. I mean, if it's in the city limits, then we would.
I think that's a good Alderman Odom new business item that, Alderman Odom, I know you've mentioned some ideas on a more holistic approach to promoting and bringing more folks into that area, not just because it's the need for the sewer that they've been turned down by the county for repair, but do you want to explore that on a new business, or do you want to do it now?
I just asked a question when this agenda item came up. What does the city do to proactively market to folks in this area where we have segregated lots that are and are not within the city? Is there some sort of outreach that we can do? Obviously, if they're in Trent Woods or Riverbend or another municipality, we wouldn't go peck them off. But in an area that's unincorporated like this, is there a reason or a methodology behind the city going out and, again, marketing to these residents why they should ask to be annexed, and providing services like streetlights could certainly be one. Police service, I know we contract the fire coverage in that area, but that way we could try to hopefully get more folks together, so when we have to do services like this, it's affecting more of our citizens than just a few in this area. But there's got to be a reason for them to want to do it. So,
Well, is that area, is it inside the corporate limits of town of Bridgeton?
No.
We would be annexed if it was.
City limits, that area is available for us to annex into the city. If they need our sewer system, they have to request the annexation. So therefore, I don't think it's in the town of Bridgeton.
Okay, what's the pleasure of the board on this item?
Mayor, I'd like to make a motion that we approve the installation of additional streetlights along Sandy Point Road and Riverside Drive.
second.
Motion and second. Is there discussion? Seeing none, let's have a roll call, starting with Alderman Bingle.
Alderman Bingle,
Yes?
Alderwoman Harris,
Yes.
Alderman Astor,
Yes.
Mayor Outlaw.
Yes.
Alderman Best,
Yes.
Alderman Odom.
Yes.
Motion carries. Item number 10.
Thank you, Mayor. Item number 10 is an ordinance to amend the Township 7 Sewer Improvements Project Fund. The city entered into a contract with Rivers and Associates in February of 2016 for engineering service associated with the Township 7 Sewer Force Main Phase 3 project. The contract amendment was approved by the board on August 25th, 2020, in the amount of $53,450, bringing the contract total to $514,950. This amendment recognizes $65,000 to be transferred from the sewer fund to the project fund to increase the project budget from $450,000 to the $515,000 needed. So this is just really some financial cleanup regarding the change order that we approved back in August.
I don't know if Mr. Hughes wants to come up and answer this or not, and I don't want to belabor the point, but are we kind of at the end of the product life cycle of this project? $515,000 and several overruns, whatever. So, and if you could just chronologically kind of give us a little historical on what this is for, what the scope of the original contract was, and what's been added, why it's been added, and where we're going from here. Thank you.
Yes, sir. The change order the board approved last meeting in August was our engineering amendment number 3 that covered the additional archaeological work that needed to be performed at the Trowel Palace site. Prior to that, we had 2 engineering amendments. Both of those were for increases in design scope. The first of which was trying to figure out a redesign of crossing the airport property. We had an original plan in place to cross the airport property through a lot of work with the airport and the FAA. That got kicked back to us. We had to do redesign, resurvey. As that was kind of tidying up, we were putting a bow on the redesign of that. The engineering group with the James City Highway project finally got caught up with us in design, and we figured out that a lot of the force main work that we were planning to leave in place as part of the James City work was going to have to get relocated. So we're able to roll some of that work into the James City Highway work. Unfortunately, it required another redesign, more surveying to go back and figure out how to tie all that together. So long and short of it is the alignment of the new force mains had to be redesigned 2 times. One, to kind of avoid some airport conflicts and get through some questions from the Federal Aviation Administration. The second is to coordinate with the DOT project. The second one is beneficial at the end of the day. With the coordination with DOT, we're able to kind of kill 2 birds with 1 stone. And some of the sewer line that's going to be relocated as part of the DOT work, we're going to upsize that as part of that relocation and use that as a piece of this alignment for the new force main. So that was actually something that came out as a net positive for us at the end of the day.
Okay. Well, there's just so much going over there with your 2 systems and your equalization system and your 24-hour day use of, 8-inch line back in the new room?
Yes, sir.
And, just all those issues. And is there any reimbursement from the airport FAA or the DOT on any of this because of the
airport FAA, no. With the DOT, yes. So with the DOT, the portion of sewer force main that were kind of rolled into the highway project, the DOT will pay for 75% of the cost to relocate that line through that portion. So that's where I say we come out as a net positive in the big scheme of things, and the redesign cost for that piece versus leaving it like it was. At the end of the day, that one will work out well for the city.
So out of the 500-some thousand, what kind of a reimbursement, if any?
You won't see it in a reimbursement of the engineering fees. What you'll see is a lower construction cost. So instead of the city having to pay 100% of the installation from, let's say, point A to point B from the equalization basin to Williams Road, like we were planning on doing through the airport property, now 75% of that pipeline will be rolled into the cost of laying that pipeline would be part of the highway relocation work. So instead of 100% of getting from point A to point B, we're going to pay 75. We're going to pay 25% of getting from point A to point B in construction. So you won't see that in the engineering portion. What you'll see is a reduced construction cost at the end of the day when moving to the construction phase of the project.
So where we are, do you anticipate any further change orders or whatever we're going to call them? What?
No, sir, I do not. At this point, we are completely finished with the design. The last thing we were tying up with the archaeological work was the necessary easements. After that, we'll have everything ready, finalize permits, and we're really hoping to be to the point where we can have permits finalized by the end of the calendar year and ready to move into construction.
So with all that going on, the things we did in the last 10, 15 years out there with all the work, the equalization basins and all that stuff is still going.
Yes, sir.
Gonna be
So
functional.
it's all kind of a collaborative effort. So we had a three-phased approach to ultimate solution for the sewer issues in Township 7. As you remember, go back to the the mid-2000s. Phases 1 and 2 have been complete, and this is kind of the capstone of that whole program is the Phase 3 project, which ultimately provides the capacity for everything we've already committed to that side of James City, both of our sewer systems, as well as has the capacity to accommodate all the development that we see in those areas.
Okay, does the board have any questions? Okay.
Mayor,
Yes,
if
ma'am.
there's no more questions, I'd like to make a motion.
Yes, ma'am.
Make a motion to adopt an ordinance to amend the Township 7 Sewer Improvements Project Fund.
Second.
Motion and a second. Is there discussion? Seeing none, let's have a roll call starting with Alderman Odom.
Alderman Odom.
Yes.
Alderman Best.
Yes.
Mayor Outlaw.
Yes.
Alderman Astor.
Yes.
Alderwoman Harris.
Yes.
Alderman Bingle.
Yes.
Motion carries. Item number 11.
Thank you, Mayor. Item number 11 is a budget ordinance amendment for the FY 2021 operating budget as described in our previous item that you just approved. This budget amendment will transfer to $65,000 from the sewer fund to the improvements project fund for Township 7. Happy to answer any questions.
Board have questions?
Mayor, I'd like to make a motion, we adopt the budget ordinance amendment for FY 2021 operating budget.
Second?
Motion and second. Is there discussion? Seeing none, let's have a roll call starting with Alderman Odom.
Alderman Odom.
Yes.
Alderman Best.
Yes.
Mayor Outlaw.
Yes.
Alderman Astor.
Yes.
Alderwoman Harris.
Yes.
Alderman Bingle.
Yes.
Motion carries. Item number 12, discussion of County Line Road. I'll start this off and then I'll turn it over to you. The Alderman Odom, Alderman Astor and myself, we asked for this to be put on the agenda. And so it's on the agenda. And would you like to start this off or would you rather turn it over to the manager?
Yeah, I think we ought to get managers to give us an update on what he knows. And
Yeah, if the board will recall, back in November of 2019, you approved a resolution requesting that the NCDOT make improvements to County Line Road. Obviously, that is a dirt road, unimproved, but it is a DOT right-of-way, DOT maintained section of highway, if you want to call it that. The area that we're talking about specifically is on the backside of Carolina Colors at the end of Old Airport Road, where we're doing our current improvements to widen the road, specifically due to the amount of traffic and volume that we're seeing around Old Airport Road on the south side of Bern, I guess if you want to call it that, near Bryce's Crossing and Gables Run and the backside of Carolina Colors and south side of Taberna, and then obviously the new development, which is Blue Water Rise and Evans Mill, which is down towards more the end of Old Airport Road. So we're seeing a lot of growth in that area, specifically new growth in the area of Blue Water Rise and the extension of Hardy Farms, which ties to Bryce's Crossing. So those two projects are ongoing, and a lot of housing starts. Carolina Colors has experienced a lot of housing starts as well. And so essentially with the Blue Water Rise project, they have primarily one improved paved ingress egress out of the subdivision. They do have a connection that ties to County Line Road, which is the dirt road and improved. But as you know, some of those issues that the board had identified back in November was safety-related concerns, specifically that were noted during Hurricane Florence with the flooding along the bridge on Old Airport Road, and ultimately the condition of what County Line Road is after such rainfall events and such significant storm events. So obviously that raises concerns about the ability of our fire and police and all of our other safety-related resources to gain access to that particular subdivision should something occur. So obviously, the board made made that request. Staff has done that. I even had Matt reach out today with the latest update. He spoke with the District 2 engineer and some of his staff regarding these improvements, and they indicated that NCDOT currently has no funding available for this section of roadway, as they said previously. The project could be included in the NCDOT State Transportation Improvement Program, but they felt that because of this particular project, that it wouldn't score real well in the system in the way all that roadway projects kind of hash out whenever you're scoring them. Obviously, that NCDOT STIP is a multi-year kind of plan programming for all the construction that's going to occur across the entire state that gets approved. Like I said, they were worried that probably wouldn't score sufficiently in a 10-year plan, so that even 10 years it wouldn't score well. The other option that they noted was in the secondary road fund that they do have $400,000 in improvements to secondary roads, but that's for the entire District 2 of DOT, which that's multi-counties, lots of state-owned roads, paved and unpaved. So obviously you can understand $400,000 is probably not going to go real far in paving 2 miles of dirt road and improving them. So needless to say, that's kind of the latest in the updates of where everything's at. I know that Mr. Thomas, who works for Mr. Sides, who's developing Blue Water Rise, is here tonight. Saw him come in. So if there's any questions regarding the subdivision, he may have some more details. But I know staff have been working through subdivision approval processes for the Blue Water Rise development. They continue to build houses. I rode out there recently, and there's 20 houses under construction right now, and they continue to be ever since the neighborhood was started. I bet I don't know, Mr. Thomas, how many houses have y'all built out there? 150 already, probably. Good number, rough number. Yeah. So it's a pretty significant amount of houses they've built out there in the last 3 years, probably. So. Happy to answer any kind of other questions you have. Matt's here. Mr. Ruggieri's here with his department if you want to ask any more questions regarding this.
I think a lot of my questions might need to go to the city attorney because I'm not real sure. I have received several phone calls, most of them from the residents of Evans Mill. At one time they were living out there at, dead-end road. It was nice and country, and every now and then a truck would drive by. Now it's streaming through there.
Sure.
Is there anything that we can do to require the contractor to do improvements on that road?
To improve Old Airport Road?
No, to improve County Line Road.
Yeah, no, sir. And the answer would be no to both scenarios. The state subdivision statute is very specific that a local government cannot require a developer as part of the subdivision process to improve an off-site, off-property public street. And that's been the law for a whole lot of years.
Can we put a moratorium on construction out there because of the lack of the infrastructure?
We can't do that. We could impose a moratorium while we are changing our subdivision ordinance to convert our subdivision ordinance from what is currently and historically been an objective process, where we meaning you, the city, sets forth all the objective criteria that it takes to get a subdivision approved. Staff checks those elements objectively, and when they're satisfied, the subdivision is approved. There's an alternate version where you can put in qualitative issues into your subdivision process, which converts it from an objective process to a quasi-judicial process where we have hearings so the public can come and speak to health and safety issues as it relates to proposed subdivisions. And then the Planning and Zoning Board would basically act as a panel, and they would hear from the public, hear from the developer, and make a decision where the subdivision is approved or not. Pretty rare. There are a few cities in the state that have that, but as you might imagine, it makes development very challenging because no one likes change. And for every new subdivision, every neighbor shows up against the subdivision for a health and safety issue, typically traffic. But that is an option.
Do we currently have an ordinance that would prohibit log trucks from, or any other big trucks from driving through? Now they're logging on County Line Road, and I'm getting a lot of complaints about the log trucks that are just driving through, and some of them actually come out to Bern, and some of them actually, they turn at Thurman Road.
Right.
Is there any ordinance that we have keeping those type vehicles from passing through?
No ordinance, and there's no state statutory authority to ban vehicles from public streets. That's the purpose of a street, right? To move vehicles. We can certainly regulate traffic and regulate truck routes as we do, but you can't create a truck route when there's only one means of ingress and egress. If there's one way in and one way out, then you have to allow a truck to pass.
Well, if they're driving County Line Road now,
right.
You know, another 2 miles, they're out in Riverdale.
And that's where the sweet talk comes in. You know, we don't have a rule and we don't have a stick. So when we don't have a stick, we've got to talk sweet to people to try to get them to accommodate, you know, what we'd like. And there are things that we might be able to think of creatively that could be helpful. I don't know what they might be, but happy to sit down with logging companies to sort out what the city might do to provide some assistance to get them to go in the opposite direction.
I have a question. Can I ask him one question beyond
Sure.
that? Here at Bobby, me.
I'm sorry.
That's okay. It's crazy. So the city does not own Old Airport Road, is that correct?
No,
or do we own it?
It does now. We do now.
Okay, but we don't own County Line Road.
Correct.
Can we have something that says, no, so many axle tractors on our roads? I know we can't regulate it on. Well, how come we can keep trucks from certain neighborhoods?
We can't.
Sure we can.
We do it. I mean,
They do it
the
now
state,
in Riverside.
the state,
You can't go down. Big trucks can't. They have to go on, I guess, North Craven Street.
We can create a truck route, right?
Right.
We can make trucks go along a route unless there's one way in and one way out. Perfect example is the YMCA and the church beside it. That's not a truck route, but they have to be served by a truck, so a truck is allowed to go there. You can't ban a truck that needs to be somewhere.
But they just can't. It can't be through traffic.
Can't be through traffic, right? You just can't go ride around all you want in your big truck.
Okay. Just want to understand that.
well,
Sorry about
the state of North Carolina, before we took that road into the city, had a maximum weight limit on that road. Right? Is that right, Matt? Why can't we?
Nothing in our local government statutes that allow for that. I assume DOT statutes have an ability to do that. I don't know how they regulate it. I can't imagine how one
That would be the problem.
sorts that out. But
What is that bridge rated for down there, Matt? Is there a weight limit on the bridge?
it's a problem. I completely understand. And the bigger issue, aside from the annoyance to the neighbors, it's the pounding and the wear and tear on city streets. And there's no statute that allows us to assess users for damage or theoretical damage to streets. That's why you're left with sitting down with logging companies and contractors and trying to sort out how to minimize that damage.
So when they come back up here looking to get an approval to build another subdivision, I cannot vote no on it as a result of the lack of infrastructure over there?
No, sir.
No, I
the
cannot.
board doesn't vote. This is the planning. This is a staff approval process. It's like a building permit for a house, right? Somebody wants to build a house that we don't like. Doesn't matter. The house gets built because they've satisfied the criteria for the building permit. Subdivisions work exactly the same way. Satisfy the criteria, you get your subdivision.
The only way to fix that is to change the subdivision regulations. which
And-
is what Scott was reflecting.
Right,
to.
and then you add a subjective component to every subdivision, and now you've gone from development friendly to the other extreme of having very little development because it's very hard to get stuff approved.
Well, I understand, we need housing, and we definitely need housing in the price point that Sides is building down there. But I have to also, we have to take into consideration all those people in that neighborhood right there beside them. This now is turned into a racetrack. We put some traffic count equipment up out there, and we had cars clocked at 55 miles an hour. On
Yeah,
it.
well, I was as you were talking, I was thinking too. Obviously we can regulate speed and keep dropping the speed and dropping the speed to create a disincentive to use that road unless you have to. The other idea too, are we sure that Old County Line Road, the elevation of that is high enough to provide an exit?
Well, I know the elevation of it is much higher than where Bryce's Creek is at. What I'm not familiar with is the portion that's in between Riverdale and County Line, whether there's any holding water areas or whatever that are up that far. But I know
It floods at the bridge there also.
elevation-wise,
Right.
from the bridge, it's pretty elevated up to get to County Line.
The only other idea I have, which is a very long-term idea, is to talk to DOT about like Airport Road, where they conveyed their right to us, is they could convey a portion of County Line Road to the city at some point, and the city could find an access onto 70 and loop over to 70. It's a long-term solution. It's going to cost the city money. I'm sure DOT would be thrilled to get out from under that obligation, but I'm not sure we want to make the 2-mile run. But if there's a way to get back out on 70 safely, and the city would acquire a parcel to get back over to 70, it's the only solution I've got in my mind to create another way out, short of paving 2 miles.
Matt, have you inspected that road lately? That new highway, that new road we just paved? Have you been down? Is it still holding up okay? No issues.
Has anyone spoken with the logging company about solutions going the opposite
Well, it's
direction?
not just a logging company. I mean, he's got concrete trucks going in there all the time. There's all kinds of large trucks going up and down that road in there. There's all kinds of traffic. They tell me that at lunchtime when the workers get off lunch and they're racing to the stores and stuff like that.
Sure.
I reckon there's been some discussion. I think the speed limit there now is 35.
I think so, yeah.
And they've asked if reducing the speed limit to 25 from the bridge to, is it Kelso? What's the name? Kelso Road.
Mm-hmm.
Was possible. So
Those are all tools to deal with it. And I know Chief's here.
I mean, versus everything. They've even asked for speed bumps, and you know how I feel about speed bumps.
Yeah, well, traffic enforcement would be a good first step, and I don't know if that's on the hot list for traffic enforcement, but that would be the next step, and then dropping the speed further. And I don't mean to put John on the spot, but John, have you guys had discussions with staff about trying to reroute trucks, heavy construction or heavy concrete trucks? It's a discussion worth having. Again, I'm not trying to pin John down, but that's a discussion worth having to see if there's some way to at least get the heaviest and biggest trucks coming in on an alternate route.
Sorry, just to piggyback on what Scott said, several months ago, right after the old airport road project was done, we did put the flashing sign out there from the police department at the exit of Blue Water Rise to try to defer traffic to County Line Road. And we could try that again. We could leave the sign out there for a longer period of time, but the quicker route is to go through to Bernhurst or Carolina Colors. That's the route they're going to go.
Well, I'm not sure if it's the quickest, but it certainly is the best riding, down versus running up down that rock road on County Line Road. It's just a shame that a young Marine that's leaving Blue Water Rise, and he has to drive all the way to Thurman Road, you know, to get on the highway to turn around and drive another couple miles. I mean, he's driving 4 or 5 miles out of his way just to head to Cherry Point. And it's just a major traffic problem down there now. So would this board support me in a resolution to reduce their speed limit to 25 miles an hour from the bridge to Kelso Road as they requested? I don't have it in writing, but the president of the Homeowners Association has asked me directly.
Alderman Astor, staff has received that request as well. And if the board's directed, we can certainly get that on the next agenda.
Short of that, I'm sorry, it's glares here. I'm having to peek around this crazy thing. Short of that, you're telling me there's nothing that we can do?
No, sir.
Right.
I wish I had a solution for you.
Tucson, would you see if you could pick up the patrolling out there a little bit? I mean, they definitely have a problem when you got a 35 mile an hour zone on that little road up there and you clock cars at 55. I think even one was at 57 miles an hour through there. There's definitely a speeding problem. Can we get a resolution, Mr. Mayor, for 25 mile an hour, reduce speeding to 25?
Is that your motion?
It is my motion.
It'd be the direction.
It'd just be direction.
Is everybody in agreement with the direction for the manager and look into that for next meeting?
Yes.
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 You know, I have one more question, maybe, Mr. Thomas. When you finish building out there, how many homes will there be?
You want him to come up with
Pardon me?
You want to get him up here?
Yeah, do you want to come up so everybody can hear? I'm going to put you on the spot, John.
I have a hearing problem, but I can actually hear you very well.
My wife says the same thing.
The current master plan that we provided to the planning department all along, and we updated it this week to them to get some numbers for you. And it was a good exercise for us to go through. I think it's like 910 homes totally out there. Of the 910, there's a water feature that comes through the property. And on the old airport road side of that water feature, there's 500 and some homes that have already been approved. The remainder of them will be on the other side, and I'll probably be on the porch drinking tea by the time we get to those. But to answer your question, 900 and some.
So that's an additional 2,000 cars, would you say? Is that about right?
Usually about eight cars.
The few studies that we've done in that area, by DOT standards, as a matter of fact, usually it's about 5 or 6 cars per home. That's what we came up with. So, you know, with 1,000 homes, that's 6,000 trips a day. Once it's all built out. Of course, you have the construction traffic during that period of time, too. But this, as I pointed out to your planning folks, this is, I think when we started this project, we targeted 50 homes a year, and we pretty much hit that nail on the head. We've done about 150 homes, construction starts, not occupied homes, in the last 3 years. So if you extrapolate that out, you're looking about a 15 plus to 20 year project by the time the last person moves in the last house there.
What's your average price?
Assuming the economy keeps at the rate it's going right now.
What's your average price point on houses?
I'm sorry.
Average price point on houses?
You know, I'm not sure, but I think they're probably in the 285 to 325. If you're doing a calculation, you're probably looking $350 million tax benefit once it's done.
The subdivision looks really nice. I rode through there the other day, and I ride through there every now and then. It really, you're doing a good job with the subdivision. I hope you don't think that this is directed to sides or you, but I do get a lot of complaints about the traffic there, and I know it's nothing you can do about it, you know.
Well, no, there's not, but, you know, I was down there today and log trucks were flying by me.
Yeah.
And they're not even associated with us. The only thing that we could probably offer to do is with the contractors that we have control over, like the site work contractors, like when they're hauling stone in there, is maybe try to reroute them a little differently. But it's hard to do because then you got some truck driver that didn't get the message and that sort of thing.
Well, anything that you can do would be very helpful.
You know, certainly speed is a problem up and down that road. I even catch myself sometimes going 44 miles an hour. But certainly the presence of...
What kind of car do you drive?
The presence of police, or even, I saw the other day you had one of the things that check your speed, you know. And, of course, every time I'm with some of your public works guys, they watch your speed because they're out there.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you know, it wasn't that long ago that one of those big, heavy dump trucks ran off the road. I'm not sure if it was because of speed or not, but he looks like he just couldn't negotiate the turn just right or something, ran off into the ditch.
I'm not sure what happened there, but I'm aware of it. He got in on that shoulder and couldn't get off of it, I guess, and rolled it right over.
All right. Well, anything you could do would be very helpful. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much.
Yes, sir. So I'm kind of surprised that we can't put a weight limit on our roads. That's the first thing.
Well, and you know, and to that end, at the end, what's that really going to accomplish? Because if you need to go on that road, regardless of a weight limit, you're going to go there with your concrete truck. Otherwise,
well, they could go. I mean, I understand.
Yeah.
I understand. Now, a while back, you sent me an email concerning something that I think this Greensboro was doing with some type of a tax of some sort, or something that was doing.
Yeah, there's an option in the statute, speaking of bad ideas, where the local government can opt to charge the developer for street construction and add on to that. So in that scenario, the city becomes the street builder. So when a subdivision is approved, city engineers, developer engineers get together, develop a budget for the construction of those streets, plus a surcharge to put into a fund for off-site construction, and then the city is responsible for building all of those streets, both inside the subdivision and outside.
Okay.
It's a tool. It strikes me as a bad one.
Thank you.
Scott or Mark, with anything, you have to have site control. So the county, or the state, owns the right of way to County Line Road. So if the state decided that they didn't want it paved for whatever reason, they ultimately can say yes or no, correct? Even if the city said it's going to cost $4 million, we'll pay for it, they have to say yes, we're okay with you doing that.
Correct.
Okay. So if step one would be, again, it could be a long-term plan, but would they be willing to talk to us about that for the future development?
Right.
Number two is, this may be another bad idea, could a MSD be created for that neighborhood and that extra increased tax go toward the improvement of County Line Road?
I'd have to think that through, but quite possibly what I want to think through is whether that road is part of the district or not. Feels a bit off-site to the district because it just goes through the national park, national forest. So I'm not positive. Certainly infrastructure can be, MSD funds can be spent on infrastructure, but I think within the district, and I don't know how we would include the road and out there.
Just draw the line that way. But.
Yeah, I hear you.
So it's an option that if they were willing to pay the extra tax, then you could actually leverage the increased tax revenue to finance the project to get it done now, and then in years down the road it would be paid for. So.
Well, they're listening to this conversation, and so maybe they'll take that in consideration and talk among themselves about it. I don't know if there's any other discussion that we need to have.
As far as our takeaways, we're happy to research those items if Alderman Odom would like or the board would like for us to do that Alderman Odom mentioned. And we certainly will bring back the resolution to the board for the 25 mile per hour speed limit change at your next board meeting.
Thank you.
Anything else on that? Let's
Yes,
go to appointments. Alderman Bingle.
None tonight, sir.
Alderwoman Harris. Appointments.
None tonight, Mayor.
Okay, Alderman Askin
None tonight, sir.
and Alderman Bess
None.
and Alderman Odom.
No, sir.
Attorney's report. City manager's report.
Several quick things. Many of you may have seen the early news, I guess, may have seen it posted, but effective October the 16th, Alfred Cunningham Bridge will change its opening schedule. It will open on the hour and the half hour between 6 a.m. and 10 p.m., except it will remain closed from 7:30 to 8:30 a.m. and from 4:30 p.m. to 6 p.m. except on holidays. It will open on signal from 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. From a voter. So just wanted to make sure that y'all know that that has been passed. It approved its final. It took a while. Yes, 2 years is a while. Actually, probably longer than that because we've asked questions multiple times to the DOT about it. But we're glad that it has finally passed the final approvals that are required for the federal government and for the Coast Guard. So that now has effective the 16th of October will become law and it will become enforced in that manner.
Will we be posting signs, or will there be some signage to let travelers know the bridge will be opening on the hour? I mean, I assume it's going to be on our city website. We'll put it out in the media, but will there be signage?
I'm not real sure what DOT's part of that would be, but I'm certainly sure that we could approach them about putting up some signage. The difficulty is that's a lot of detail to put on a sign that someone's going to read whenever they're traveling 35 miles per hour. So it'd have to be a pretty large sign to get the lettering height large enough where somebody could read that amount of stuff. But happy to research that, get maps, take a look at that, and the possibility of a sign on this side of the bridge and on the other side of the bridge as you're coming up on it. But ultimately, if you're coming to downtown and the bridge is coming up, you're going to get stopped before you even get to that sign anyway. So.
Mark, can you just clarify the change to the top of the hour and bottom of the hour? That doesn't mean that if a boat's sitting there and doesn't need to pass through, that it's just going to open up every 30 minutes, correct? It's only if there's a boat waiting.
I'll let Matt address that.
Alderman Odom, I had the same concern actually this afternoon when I interviewed with Channel 12. So I actually reached out to the Coast Guard this afternoon, and I was instructed that when it reaches the hour and the half hour, if there is not a boat that has radioed in that needs to pass underneath the bridge will not open.
Thank
It
you.
only opens if a boat needs to pass through.
Okay, thanks.
So hopefully, for those who have been experiencing trouble with exiting downtown during rush hour traffic, this will resolve that issue, specifically around the morning hours and the afternoon hours of rush hour.
Okay, anything else under the city manager?
I do. Just a reminder of our work session that's scheduled for the 6th of October, 4 p.m., City Hall courtroom. I do have kind of a preliminary draft agenda that I'm going to be sending the board. It primarily is going to be all financial related. There are two projects that the board had asked me to bring back up to discuss. I'm happy to receive direction that we don't want to hear those if you want to go that route, but those two items are the City Hall Annex project and the Racetrack Road project, because obviously we would have people who need to come to support staff that y'all have asked us to get to research this, being Trip for the City Hall Annex project, and then our engineers for the Racetrack Road project. So if y'all don't want to discuss those, we need to know so we can tell them not to come.
I assume we will hear that after we hear about the financial condition.
Yes, ma'am. The
So
financial
we can
is the
schedule
first
that
one. So just to go real quickly over the agenda, I'm going to send it to y'all, but the intent is for us to update you on where we are with the FEMA reimbursements as far as what we expended, what we have been reimbursed, and then what we see in the future as far as our expenses and reimbursements for FEMA projects. Also, we're going to look at a financial update that's going to be looking at our revenues actual versus our revenue projections and where we had budgeted for. We're going to do that comparison so you can kind of see how this COVID impact has been. And then expenditures to date versus what we had budgeted. So that's what we are internally spending versus what we budgeted. And then finally, want to go over, as I told you when we had the budget presented to you and the board adopted it, I want to bring back to you the capital request and some of the personnel requests that you heard during the retreat that weren't approved during the budget because we ran into these COVID-related issues, and we wanted to make sure that we have a conservative budget that would allow us to weather potential revenue and expenditure impacts in that. So that will be brought to you as well, because if you recall, I'm almost certain that there were probably 20 positions or 20 plus positions just in the general fund alone that were requested by staff. So it's definitely some things that we've got to discuss and look at. I've also had staff, Mary has asked staff to update their 5-year capital plan so you can kind of see what's coming up with the upcoming budget year and budget requests, just to kind of give you a precursor as to what's leading into this upcoming budget. So a lot of things to discuss. I'm sure it'll be a plenty of items and time for us to answer any kind of questions the board may have, but those are the 4 items that I have on the agenda at this time.
Anything else?
Mayor, I think that's it, sir.
Okay. While we're in the city manager's report, I could do this on new business, but I think it just be just as good to do it under city manager's report. I am not, as an elected official, satisfied with the sidewalks in the city of New Bern. And the 2 things that Public Works needs desperately, and I know you bought a machine a year or so back. I truly believe that I think that some of our conditions of our sidewalks are so overwhelming that I think residents, if periodically, once a year or so, the city of New Bern would do their part to maintain some of our sidewalks, which are probably 4 to 5 feet wide, but are actually only about 2 feet wide because of the amount of growth on them. I think that if the city did its part with the proper equipment, and I think, Mr. Stevens, I've mentioned and shown you some of the type of equipment. It's not a lawnmower with a disc on the front, but there are really good machines that effectively can edge our sidewalks. I think then we could, the second phase of that, discover integrity issues associated with sidewalks, and including the next phase of that is a milling machine or an outsource with some contractor to periodically and staff to go around and make sure our sidewalks are safe. So I think that being under new business, under city manager's report, if the board so at this time or in future time wants to give the manager direction as to the quality of life issues and the safety of our citizens, and I'll also mention while I'm doing that I think I've already mentioned, I know we budgeted $200,000 for sidewalk improvements. I certainly would like to see a large amount of that be spent on areas of New Bern that directly tie into the workforce development, as to where residents that want to walk down and get a trade skill certification and those type of things, workforce development. I'd rather see the improvements starting now than starting next June or something. So I'm just going to make those comments. If the board wants to follow up on any of that, so be it.
Well, I know we, especially in my ward, I'm sure Alderman Best has it in her ward as well, where the sidewalks are older and a lot of them are pushing up. They're not even anymore. We had somebody get hurt downtown New Bern last week, and as I went around, I reported this. They're spraying the areas and I guess going back and trying to fix this, but I was surprised at how many places there really were downtown where it's uneven, but it's because of the old trees, the roots pushing up. I totally understand it. One of the questions I got from the citizen was, do we do a routine inspection? Is that part of what we do, or part of the street division or sidewalk division? Do we do a routine check to see that these sidewalks are having issues and we need to repair them? I could not answer that question, so I don't know if that's something you want to advise or help us, or however we want to handle that situation.
I know that Matt does have his staff review. Obviously, it's kind of like it's almost like a police thing, where we do rely somewhat on the citizens to help us out with that, because we don't have eyes everywhere in every single square inch of the city on every single square inch of our sidewalks. But we would encourage people to, if they have those issues, to call them in, because we set aside work orders. Those work orders drive our staff to go do those works. But obviously, we can try to put some staff more focused on those particular items if that's the direction.
I'm not saying that it needs to be necessary. The question was raised of me, and again, my response was, we are mostly complaint driven. That's an issue, you call it in and we try to get it fixed, but that we don't necessarily have staff to go all around. But I'm sure as the areas age, these older trees, it could become more of a problem.
Alderman Best.
Well, the issue that over on National Avenue, okay, I just want to know if that, there's probably another block that the sidewalks over there needs to be cleaned as well. So I was wondering, are the crew going to continue down that street, avenue, make those sidewalk improvements? Since the mayor got since we have $200,000.
Yeah, I can assure you that if it was my lead, I would tell them to look at every single thing down that street. But quite frankly, they need to look at every single, foot that we have of sidewalk. I mean, but then again, they get pulled off on a billion different directions. Hey, we need to go fix these potholes. We need to fix these sidewalks. We need to go trim these trees. We need to cut this tree down. We need to go dig out these ditches. We need to go mow this right of way. We need to, so there's a limited amount of staff time that's available for the stuff that we have. So, but I certainly would advise Matt, and I'm sure Matt's going to go out there and look at all those areas where we have those issues.
So at this point, since we have the money, is this something that you need direction from the board so that we can go ahead and start this process, or how are we going to handle it? Is it going to come through a customer, a citizen calls us and say this needs to be done, or are we going to go ahead and start this process?
Alderman Best, and to the mayor's comments, we've got $250,000 budgeted this year for sidewalk improvements. The direction of staff at the time the budget was created was that we use that money for sidewalk repairs and one to fill in gaps where we have a sidewalk here and we have a sidewalk here and we're filling in the gap in between. The public works staff has put together a plan. We finished it this week. We worked with Alice over in GIS. She has mapped everything out for us and put it on the map. And it is my intention to forward it to the board so you can see exactly what our plans are doing. But the intention of that project is, one, to make improvements to existing sidewalks, and two, to fill in gaps. If there are the desire of the board to put sidewalks at the Volt Center or put sidewalk in some other subdivision that doesn't have those sidewalks, that is not in the plan because that was not the direction at the time the budget was created. We can certainly alter our plan to do that, or we can add to it, but more money would need to be budgeted for something like that.
Alderman Odom.
Man, I know we do that street survey periodically.
We do.
I know this is somewhat insignificant compared to a street survey, but is it possible to have, even if you hired a couple temp people to just go around and do an inspection of all the city sidewalks, give us an assessment, rank them, these are number one priorities all the way down the list, and then that way in my opinion, the funding should be spent on the higher problematic areas and the areas with potential for risk versus whichever neighborhood or whichever citizen screams the loudest about getting some work done around their house. That way that's why I'm a big fan of the street survey, because it's very objective, it's done by an outside source, and there's really no politics involved with what neighborhood or ward gets the money.
And that's exactly true. I haven't looked into the company that does the street survey, but whether we do it with staff or whether we hire a company to do it, I'm sure there's a way to do it. And rank them, and then make the repairs in accordance to, But as I've heard, the $250,000 in the budget, we're using that for gaps and for places we know we've got some severe damages. Now, I do think that a survey that you're talking about would help us solve a lot of the issues that Alderman Bengal was talking about, where we've got trip hazards and issues that we've seen here recently.
Well, I think you should immediately go out and throughout our sidewalk system and find the most problematic safety issues and immediately hire an outsource and mill them. And then I think you should, over the next year, even if you have to take the allotted amount of money and reallot it for maintenance versus capital improvement, sidewalk installation, and you should then phase it in, and before this year's out, have all these sidewalks fixed. And part of that is, I know that staff and others are probably concerned that the more we do, the less the public, the citizens might do. And I don't think that's true. I think that some of the issues with sidewalks are so overwhelming to the citizens, the residents, that I don't know that they know where to start or stop. And I think that in a lot of these areas, the deferred maintenance associated with overgrowth, if we fixed it, I think more likely more residents would pitch in and start maintaining it. But I know that the Board of Aldermen is not giving the staff the direction they need. If I was the arbiter of the decision making, you guys would be out there tomorrow morning fixing these sidewalks. But I speak for only one person. It's a very unsafe situation, and the New Bern citizens deserve better than this. And when the Board of Aldermen decides to take action, I will certainly join in with them on this item.
So why can't we take action tonight?
You can't. You and 6 other people can.
That's exactly.
But somebody needs
So
to.
I need to make,
Well,
do we need to just give direction, or do we need to?
The money's there.
A vote.
The money's there. You
Or
need
do
to
we
tell
need
your.
to
Yeah, but
vote
does he
on
have
it?
staff to just stop what they're doing, to just start doing
I
sidewalks?
said the immediate problematic areas, you go ahead and outsource somebody with a milling
But
machine to come here and
how,
fix it.
so we first have to get somebody to rank and figure out what the most problematic things are. You're just going to send them out there? Who's going to determine what's the most problematic?
I guess we have to start the
This
process.
is not a comprehensive $33 million drainage issue with CD. This is sidewalks, and it is an absolute, anybody walking down there, just perusing just any street. If you see what we saw yesterday on the Bingle, it needs milling immediately.
And so,
Can I offer a suggestion here? Perhaps, we've got $250,000 in the budget. Obviously, $250,000 goes a certain amount of way, but I've always been that with the mentality that we need to maintain what we got before we start adding more. Even though I know we have gaps, and there are some gaps in there, we probably should maintain and look at some of these issues. We have significant repair issues that are necessary. So I'm happy to charge Matt with finding those locations and identifying them in some kind of prioritized worst case scenario. We've got the map that shows where our sidewalks are, what Alice has. We can put eyes on pretty much every one of those. And how long would it take us to do that, Matt?
We can knock it out fairly quickly. I mean,
Okay.
what
So,
we do, Mark.
A week we could have that done, and then we can, or so, we can have somebody put their eyes on it, try to identify the worst places, and begin that work as quickly as we can. $250,000 is going to go a certain amount, but I will say, staff's done a very good job of trying to improve our sidewalks. If you will recall, probably 5 years or less ago, we had hardly any handicap accessible sidewalks in any of our historic areas for sure, much less downtown and some of those other places other than some of these latest improvement projects, which, that was a big issue then, was handicap accessibility. So a lot of money was spent to try to get those as far as repair. So obviously money goes a certain distance and then we run out of it. But I'm happy to have staff and Matt. We can direct them to address these significant issues, and especially the trip hazards that could potentially be liable situations for us as a city. So we will address those immediately, and I'll have staff jump on that as quickly as we can.
Well, I beg the board not to do a study. Just go fix the
We can do that with staff, sir.
We don't
There's
need
no
an
reason for us to get a
engineering
staff
study
person.
on this.
I agree. We can do it.
so that's your direction, right?
So Mark, just so I'm clear, that we'll take the 250 that was in the budget this year and put it completely to maintenance and repairs of existing sidewalks.
I think that we can work through that. What I'm hearing from the board is that they want improvements done to their sidewalks, And where we have sidewalks that exist that are trip hazards, we need to address those immediately.
Yes.
More so than we do having to fill in gaps in places like that. That becomes if we've got $50,000 or $100,000 left over, but we need to address those immediate needs right now. Is that what I understand?
Yes, the risk factors. I'm
Who's doing the little bit of milling that's being done? I noticed Alderman Bingham and I were checking out a problem yesterday, and there is some milling being done. Is the staff doing that, or do you hire somebody?
Staff's doing that.
But the milling machine, to do the extent of milling we need, is probably not the type of machine you need. Do you need a bigger machine?
Yeah, we're actually using a grinder. It's good for small areas.
Yeah, you need a much more aggressive, robust type of machine to do the amount of
Mayor,
milling.
the ones you're probably talking about over in National Avenue area that you were talking about and identifying, those are probably full tear outs. Those are not mill downs. There's a lot of those areas where they're so cracked up, and especially if you have a milling where you've got this much separation between two different things, you might as well not even bother milling.
I know that would be a tear out, but I mean, we saw a lot of in-between issues.
Downtown New, a lot of it in the historic district is the trees, absolutely the roots and pushing up, and you can see where they're uneven, and it's definitely a trip hazard.
We definitely are aware of that, yes.
Thank you for your encouraging ideas and thoughts on this matter.
Okay.
Thank you.
We're going to go to new business, starting with Alderman Odom.
None tonight, sir.
Alderman Bass.
None.
Okay. Alderman Ash.
None tonight, sir.
Alderwoman Harris.
Yes, Mayor. So I just wanted to inform everybody that today is National Voter Registration Day, and make sure you're registered to vote. There's going to be a voter registration drive. I guess it's going to be held Saturday at 11 a.m. in the 5 Points area by the Old State Inn. And don't forget to fill out your census. You have until September 30th. And last, I would like to be able to have a conversation at the workshop to talk about possibly putting $50,000 aside for nonprofits to apply for COVID. And if we can give out $1,000, we can possibly help 50 local nonprofits. So that is something that I would like to talk about, because we have local nonprofits that do directly impact our communities that are being hit the hardest for this pandemic. So I just wanted to put that out there, that I'm going to bring that up on that day.
Yes,
and
ma'am.
that's all I have.
Okay, thank you. Alderman Astor.
Hey, I wanted to bring something up. I just asked a question. Can anybody give me an update on what's going on with the Days Inn property? And if nothing's happening, can we at least get it on the market and see if we can sell it?
Well, it really becomes more of a decision of what the board wants to do. It can be sold. There have been some discussions about possibly having a developer come in and do things. It is within the redevelopment area. You know, the board had talked at one time of every property that the city owns that's in the redevelopment area gets turned over to the city. So we as staff are waiting for some direction from the board as to what they would like to do with that property. Obviously, it's commercial. I know at one time we even talked about submitting all the residential, but hold off on the commercial. So, you know, we've heard a lot of things, but no board unanimous decision as to what they would like for us to do.
Mark, I wanted to say something. Sabrina, do you remember having that meeting with the developers about Days Inn? Do you think it's possible we can possibly set up a workshop for them to be via Zoom to kind of talk about what they can do?
Yes, ma'am, I do, and you know, I think we need a workshop, period. I think there's a lot of information out there, and we need to look at the direction the board would like to go. So I would ask that we schedule a workshop to talk about this, and not necessarily like October 6th, but I think we need a workshop to talk about this.
You want to set a date? You want to set?
We can go in November if you want to do the off week in November.
Are we going to talk about something other than Days Inn for a workshop, though? I mean,
Well, I think the properties, isn't that before us too? Maybe we can have that. I know that.
so maybe a redevelopment commission workshop where they can come in and update us on what they've accomplished since they've.
That's
okay.
fine. It could be multifaceted.
Yes, ma'am. While the board's on this issue, I was going to put on your next agenda the conveyance of the city-owned residential lots on the agenda with a map for the board to review and a copy of the deed, so that if you like the map, you could go ahead and adopt a resolution at your next meeting to convey all the city-owned residential lots to the commission.
Right. Well, we
Or
can
I
still
can-
have
or I can hold
discussion
off.
with redevelopment about the commercial parts of it, too.
Yes, ma'am. Are we good with me going forward as I discussed?
I know.
I'm okay with that.
I know at some point, just a while back, there was some discussion about that property. Do you know if that's still being, there was somebody that might be interested in it or something? Do you know if that's still?
What, the Days Inn property, Alderman Astor?
Yeah.
Days Inn property.
I think
There's been a few people that have, that I have met with, because it's in my ward. I've actually also too met with Alderman or Alderwoman Harris and another group of potential developers. So I think there's several people with several ideas out there, and that's why a workshop would be good to sit down and talk about some of these ideas that have been presented to us. Some seem okay, some don't. But again, if we put it in redevelopment commission's hand, then we don't have it would leave
Is
for
it
more
possible when we do this that we allow some people to come speak and give an idea of what they can do?
We can do however anybody wants to do.
I think the board probably needs to decide what we want to do with the property. If we decide that we want to disperse it or give it to the redevelopment commission or whatever, if we want to hear different people come in and make pitches, then we need to open it up, because I'm sure there's other folks throughout the area that wants to come in and make a presentation as well. I'm open to sit there all day if we want to have developer after developer come in and make their pitch to us. So.
I agree.
Well, have we let the developers know that this piece of property is available, and can you, if you're interested in?
It really boils down to what the board wants to do. If you want to have the control to decide what happens on Days Inn, then you don't need to convey it to the redevelopment commission. If you want to relinquish your control of what happens with that site, then give it to the redevelopment commission, because that's kind of what you've charged them to do, is to figure out a way to redevelop this area. Now, if you want to maintain that control and the board wants to look at lots of different options for developers to come in here, I would say you develop the criteria much like we did with the Dunn building, and you either, one, sell it like you normally do at, for the highest bidder, or two, like the Dunn building, you have the prettiest picture contest, as Scott, using your terms, you have them come in and say, here's what we can say we want to do with this particular site, but I think you need to develop the criteria for what you want them to bid on.
Can we do that? Because that's not in the downtown jurisdiction.
We would do that in conjunction with the commission.
Yes.
Okay.
They can do that.
But in the end, it's the board. If you have a vision, if the board has a vision for what you want done on that property, it would probably be good to have that discussion so you can let the redevelopment commission know what your thoughts are, what your vision is.
It would just be a perfect spot if, a grocery store,
Well, that's what
Dollar General, or
we've been looking for. Is
something,
a grocery store or something like
people
that.
over in that neighborhood certainly would benefit from it.
Grocery store would be great. I can tell you staff has worked years trying to entice a grocer to come in and locate at that particular, and unless the city or the redevelopment commission is willing to incent that to happen, it's probably not going to happen. I'm just trying to set realistic expectations. Now, if there is a multi-use type situation to where maybe a small portion of the commercial space on the first floor could be used for some kind of smaller grocery type, fresh produce type thing, that might be viable. But to do a large box store grocery thing, I highly doubt it unless it's incented in some way. I don't know, Mr. Ruggiero, you might have some other insight on that.
Mark, I just wanted to add something. I think it would make a good idea for us to actually have some sort of workshop because this property is directly in 5 Points, and we want to make sure that something that's going to be developed there is going to benefit the marginalized community that it is in. And so just to throw some stuff around and not really digest it, I think we should have a workshop because there are many people, many developers that have great ideas, but they would like a seat at the table to do that. Like Mark said, we need to create a criteria and like what Jeff said, figure out what we want to do with it.
Just a suggestion for the board members, maybe we have a joint meeting with redevelopment. They meet usually on the Wednesday night after our first meeting, so we are the second Tuesday, they're the second Wednesday. Is that correct, Jeff? Second Wednesday? Yeah. It's the second Wednesday. Maybe we just have a joint meeting, have them here, have a joint meeting with them so that we're just all meeting, and that would be the one topic to update and talk about the properties. I don't know how the board feels. I'm just using that as a suggestion if we wanted to do that. Since it would be both boards, the redevelopment commission would have to be noticed just as we would have to be noticed because they, is that correct?
Mr. Davis, can I ask you a legal question about this? I know that from what I've heard in many discussions about this property, most of what I've heard is market rate or affordable rate type housing. There has to be, for that area of town, it needs a commercial component associated with whatever improvement goes there. My thought on it is that the board should come together on what hybrid blend of improvement we want, which would be, it could be a shell commercial first floor, market rate, second, third floor, or whatever, affordable rate, fifth floor, whatever. But my thought is to hire not the UNC group, but somebody who truly knows how to, in the Raleigh-Durham market or the Goldsboro market or wherever, that can take what this board agrees on needs to go there and go market it. And could we hire a consultant, consultant, commercial CCIM, realtor type person to accomplish that goal for us? Could we do that?
Yes, sir, you could, but I think as Alderman Odom and Bengal were pointing out, if you don't do it in conjunction with the Redevelopment Commission, and if the Redevelopment Commission doesn't agree with the vision, then the Board of Aldermen can only sell the property to the highest bidder. If you want to sell it with strings attached, it's got to go through the Redevelopment Commission because they have statutory authority to put the strings on it. So you all want to be on the same page with that vision.
I think if the board, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, whenever that got demolished, I think if the board were agreeing, which I would not agree to, that it totally be a multi-story residential improvement there.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I think it'd be built by now. I think we'd have already consummated a deal with somebody. But I do think most of us feel, I'm not speaking for anybody, but I think from what I'm gathering, hearing, and talking, that there has to be the commercial component of it, and that's on that first floor. Now, whether or not the city of New Bern puts skin in the game, they own the property. They do just like the mall out there. They have shared maintenance of the mall improvements, and we work some kind of a deal like that to make that component happen. And in a future date, we might sell our interest out. Mm-hmm. When that anchors and stimulates that area of town to more people want to invest like that, we might just sell our portion out, just like we did the Dunn building. Is that a possibility?
Absolutely.
What's the first step of the journey? The hardest part of the journey is first step. Have you been in your legal associations elsewhere? Have you seen situations like this at work?
Well, I've never had the experience where we are working with city-owned property with a redevelopment commission that doesn't own the property. That's a new twist, which is why I say we've got to be on the same page. But anything's possible.
The redevelopment commission primarily because there's things that we can't do, they can do.
Right.
Now, I don't know that necessarily is true with this piece of property. I don't know that
It
we,
is true.
as was with putting lipstick on the pig, that we can't decide what we want with that property and then go hire a consultant to help us make it happen.
A consultant can help create the vision, and then you can market the property to the highest bidder,
Right.
who may change that vision on the day of closing, because the city cannot put conditions on property that it owns when it sells it, unless it's in a central business district, which is downtown. And maybe there's a version where we try to create another central business district. I haven't thought through that, but that might be possible, where the board would go to 5 Points and the board would do its own district. But you've got a redevelopment commission that's already there. But to your point, Mayor, the same thing can be accomplished, and I can't imagine that the redevelopment commission would be contrary when you're all working together, and if the city paid for and brought in a consultant to help everyone. It seems to me that you'd get a lot of buy-in with that joint process, and you could accomplish exactly what you're talking about.
I totally am in favor of the redevelopment commission. I think, speaking for myself, there's a little concern that from what I'm hearing, that is the most maximally productive use of the property. I'm not so sure that my ideology of it would be the flavor of the redevelopment commission. Redevelopment commission, if you deeded the property over, might immediately go put a totally 100%
That's why we need to have a
residential
workshop.
multi-story
Right.
building there.
Right.
And that's not going to stimulate that area to get commercial growth.
Here's a version to play out your idea. It could certainly work, and we have some control over it. We just couldn't do it with conditions. The consultant, the broker, could help the city develop the vision. The broker could identify the buyer. The buyer could make an offer on the property, right? And we could all shake hands and be excited about the vision, and we could close on the property. But there's no legal obligation thereafter for the developer to make that happen.
Well, I encourage the redevelopment commission, if I'm out of order on this, I encourage the redevelopment commission to take and run with it, with a design. And then maybe I'll jump on board and say, let's deed the property over to the redevelopment commission and let them roll with it. Alderman Evans?
But Mayor, I think there's a way for us to work together. I really believe that if we could just all sit at the table.
Scott, can we
Yeah.
continue our first meeting next month? Can we, instead of adjourning, can we continue it to the next night, invite the redevelopment commission to come here and have our session?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Thank you.
That's what I would like to do, and let's put this together, and then we can step back and decide to go forward, sidewards, or whatever. But I would like to offer that, not necessarily as a motion, I guess, as direction, or do we need a motion?
So, which
We need
meeting
a
are you talking
motion.
about, Alderman Evans?
2 weeks?
In 2 weeks. Our
Okay, is
meeting's
that your
on,
motion?
well, we can't do it until we're in the meeting to make the motion to,
Well,
Recess.
yeah, but you need to kind of quasi-plan for it to happen.
Or we would have to get the redevelopment commission to announce that their meeting place was here.
Is that, they meet on the 2nd or 3rd?
Second.
The se-
Yes, and we're the 13th.
Okay.
Just like a public knows you're going to have a joint meeting on the night after. It doesn't have to be continued.
Either way works.
I do
You can call a
formally-
special meeting now, or you can continue the next meeting, whatever you like.
I'd make a formal.
okay, what time do they meet?
6?
What time do they meet? I make a motion that the New Bern Board of Aldermen holds a special meeting on Wednesday, October the 14th at City Hall at 6 p.m. as a joint work session with Redevelopment Commission.
Second.
Motion and second. Is there discussion? No discussion. All in favor of the motion, say aye. Aye. All opposed, say aye. I'm ready for a $10 million ad valorem income stream revenue source to come up and take the place there from what? Zero income stream right now. Alderman Bingham, I know you got a lot
I
on your
do.
plate. Go for
I'm
it.
so sorry. I do have a lot tonight. A couple of things. I want to thank the Housing Authority. Last night, the mayor and I welcomed the Housing Authority board and staff here to City Hall, where we held their regularly scheduled board of commissioners meeting, and thought it went very well. It was televised on TV3 and live streamed, and it's a process that's being worked on with the city and the Housing Authority, and I just want to say I'm thankful to the leadership there at the Housing Authority and the mayor for supporting me and getting them to be in a more public setting where citizens can view their meetings. So many thanks to them. Foster, would you mind just very quickly giving us an update on the last Stanley White Recreation Center meeting? I've had a couple people ask how the process is going. I did watch it. I know that you approved a plan, but if you just give us a very brief update.
Right. So we did meet last Tuesday evening. Our consultants, CP&L partners, they did come in. They talked about it's a living, breathing document for how we're going to continue to move forward with getting public input for this plan. The plan is scheduled to last several months. The committee did approve that plan, and we're waiting for the consultants to send me the copy, and we're actually going to bring this to the Board of Aldermen so you can have that as well. So the meeting went very well. We're actually scheduled to start focus group meetings next week, so we're in the process of inviting community leaders to one meeting. We'll have a variety of nonprofit organizations meet at another meeting, and we'll also have city staff and Parks and Recreation staff at another focus group meeting. After the focus group meetings take place, we'll be coming back with another community input meeting, and that will basically focus on what we've learned so far from the first meeting, the focus group meetings, and then we'll keep on continuing from there. So the process is going very well. Also, we're still going through the environmental assessment process with FEMA. We're working with FEMA representatives on a weekly basis. We have meetings with them on a regular basis, so that's going well also.
Okay, that's great. Thank you. I just wanted to let the public know that the process is still taking place.
Yes.
And looked like, had great discussion at the meeting, so that's a good thing. Very good thing. Thank you. And Matt, I do want to thank you for all the work you did on the bridge. I really do appreciate that, because I know it was a long, arduous process, and I do want to say thank you to that. Chief, I want to thank you for your very quick response on the first flight incident, and that nobody was harmed and the suspect was captured and without anybody being injured or harmed. So really kudos to you and your staff. I saw where you got recognition today from First Flight, and really thank you to all your staff. I know I was really nervous when I first heard it, because I didn't know that it could have been a hostage situation or whatever, but I'm really thankful for the quick reactions. Thank you so much. And then last, I was visited today by Tom Balance, Ashley Moser, who has Cypress Hall. Tom has Captain Ratty's, Buddy from Baker's Kitchen, and I spoke to Mike Lentz by phone and Folks Foundation, and they have requested that on Sunday during the October, and not part of Mum Feast, but on the Sundays in October, that the 200 block of Middle Street be closed until 3 o'clock on Sunday, so that the restaurants, the 4 restaurants there, can have additional dining outside. So I've spoken to the city manager. I just got this afternoon, and basically the letter reads: to the Board of Aldermen, during the month of October, Swiss Bear is putting on Mum Feast, which will incorporate closing downtown streets in New Bern on Friday and Saturday nights. Local restaurants on the 200 block of Middle Street are requesting that the street remain closed until Sunday at 3 p.m. to further assist with Sunday brunch and lunch crowds. And they each signed it. So again, when I spoke to the city manager about this, we did have one concern, and that was First Baptist Church. That would be the rest of the stores are closed on Sunday, so it wouldn't impact any of the businesses that are down there because they're closed. But First Baptist Church, they do have a parking lot behind. So Scott, I'm not sure, because October's coming, we won't have a meeting. I feel very important that I speak to somebody over at First Baptist Church, also to downtown business meeting. But is there any way to say it may be okay, or how would we handle this? Not sure, and I'm not even sure how to act on this request. Look at that worried look on your face.
Yeah. I'm trying to avoid a special meeting to make it happen.
Okay.
We certainly prefer a resolution when we're controlling streets, like you've been doing. We adopt a resolution to add dates and weekends to it, to close the streets. It's always the best practice. And then you add a twist to it where it's a maybe close the streets, which makes it impossible.
Okay, let me ask this question then. Since we have our work session on the 6th, is it possible to add that to the agenda?
Sure.
And they'd miss the first weekend or whatever, but there's 5 weekends. Isn't there 5 weekends in October that the restaurants would do that? I don't know if that's possible, and then I could get some, at least either confirmation or whatever from First Baptist Church, and again, shoot it to the Downtown Business Council, which meets this Thursday night.
It takes 4 of you to have a quorum for a special meeting.
No, I'm talking about our work session.
I was trying to get you an extra weekend.
Well,
I mean, sure, yes is your yes to that answer.
Okay.
But if you're going to do it, why not try to get the extra weekend in? And if it's just a matter of 4 of you showing up for a 2-minute special meeting to approve it, maybe that's doable. Nah, I have to think through that.
Okay. Well, I feel like I need the rest of this week to at least contact First Baptist or get some, so I know that we're...
Keep me and the city manager in the loop.
Okay.
We can certainly do it the way you suggest, but
on the 6th.
My suggestion is if you're going to do it, let's rally and try to do it for the whole month and pick up the first weekend too.
Okay. The rest of the board, are you okay with what I'm suggesting? I have no issue with one way or the other, but I'm just representing their wishes right now. Okay. All right, let me do that, and then I'll work with the city manager, and you can contact him. We'll work from there. And then the only other thing I did want to say, I would like to just take a minute to send my deepest condolences to our country and to the family of Ruth Bader Ginsburg. For everybody who knows me knows that my political alignment is not the same as hers, but my woman alignment is the same. And I would not be sitting in this seat. Alderman Best, Alderman Harris, we would not be sitting in this seat had it not been for the courage and forward thinking of people, of women like Ruth Bader Ginsburg. And I did want to just take a minute to recognize that and celebrate who she was to women across our country. That's it. Thank you.
Alderman Bingham, you want to mention anything about the lighting that that was discussed at the House Authority meeting?
Well, I've already talked with Mr. Bouchard today about the lighting. He has contacted Ms. Lee, who's their interim executive director, and we are working on trying to light up the back there. Now, I understand what the issue was, and it's not having any power back there, and how do we get power back there? So we are going to be working on that. But thank you for that.
Yes, ma'am. Any other new business at this time? Do we need a closed session tonight?
Yes, sir. I need you in a closed session pursuant to 143-311A3 to discuss City of New Bern versus Carlson.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and second. Is there discussion? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same. We're